This is the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game.
Rule number 1 is you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who doesn't think you belong in this appointment. The prospect has already validated your existence by scheduling time with you. Get it through your head you belong here, go in there, crush it, and close the deal.
A place where sales professionals can come to learn from other sales professionals and thought leaders that have mastered their craft.
The difference between a good salesperson and a best-in-class salesperson is only 2 minutes. By spending an extra 2 minutes on what you might think is a mundane task in the sales game, you separate yourselves from the pack, you grow your book of business, you close more deals, and you retain your accounts.
As well as their peers who are still striving for perfection to achieve their why.
I have a wife and 4 kids. Failure is not an option.
Real sales professionals, real stories, real results. Are you ready to feel the power?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we're redefining the sales game. Today we have an exciting guest, Mr. Mitch Gibson, holdout of the protege, but played perfectly into exactly what I wanted to do. We'll talk about that a little bit, but right now, my goodness, people, I love writing business and I hate writing business. It is like, we wrote a monster account on Monday. Mm-hmm. And another one that was really good sized yesterday.
Yeah.
Actually, one yesterday that was way more in our wheelhouse than the one that we wrote from Monday. The one we wrote on Monday
Seriously.
is $250,000 in revenue to the agency.
Right.
So it may be the only account I write this year. Like, I might just take the rest of the year off.
Might just find your ass down in Key West.
Yeah, so go down to Key West and fish or something.
Sucking down some margs at Jimmy whatever's, wherever you
There's
go.
only 2 weeks left in the year, so it wouldn't hurt too bad to take the rest of the year off.
Probably be awesome for Christmas.
Yeah.
What kind of accounts were they, David? What kind of industry were we in here?
Construction, which is what I don't like to dabble in, although it is more residential service contractor related stuff, but it's heavier, more blue collar. It's just a weird, perfect storm of stuff where 3 companies that are essentially
They just got a lot going on.
Well, yeah, but the thing is 3 companies that were standalone middle market companies. They would have all been middle market on their own.
Yeah.
And then they combined.
Right.
And they all have separate insurance programs.
And
Half the crap
zero
like some of it-
policies and procedures.
Yeah, no policies and procedures from a safety and risk management standpoint, human resources, nothing. So basically, it looks like 3 contracting companies that scaled very quickly, which a lot of them can. They will be operating in 25 states in the next 2 years. They're in about a dozen right now. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing. Like, we went in, I bet you in 2 hours and 15 minutes of meeting with them, I said insurance a half a dozen times. That's it. Like, it was all HR, safety, anything and, just operational. Basically the same stuff we preach on the podcast all the time is happening in front of me in real time. And it was just nuts because this thing is so jacked, man. Like, she's sending me all of this stuff. So here's the thing, Kyle. Yesterday, I tendered the AOR to the workers' comp carrier. Within 5 minutes, it gets bounced back to me. It says, we can't honor this because this policy has already been canceled at the renewal for failure to meet underwriting guidelines. Okay?
Okay, so that doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me either. Very specifically to, if you'll remember, the conversation about the percentage of subcontractors, and I asked that very question in the meeting. I said, so do you not have subs at this particular entity? And the answer was, no, these people are all W-2 employees. And then it kind of shifted over to, we even had to put our clerical people and things. At that point, things were not adding up in the conversation. So I'm like, all right.
So I wrote down on my notepad, while we were sitting right there and that part of the meeting happened, I was like, I kind of jotted that down. I was like, okay, I need to ask about this later because this makes no sense to me.
Right. Well, I mean, and the thing is, they led us to believe that there weren't, that they were W-2 employees. Of course, the carrier's not going to give me information. They didn't honor me as the new agent of record, so they can't communicate with me on the account. They can only tell me it's underwriting considerations. But I can put 2 and 2 together and know what that is.
So did they not? Did they have a terrible mod? Did they have any losses that were
No, they don't
extravagant?
even have a bad
And
mod. Like
they were
that's
one
what
of
I'm
those.
saying, man. It's just like one of these
It's below
things
one,
where,
isn't it?
yeah, it's like a 0.86. If
Yeah.
you look at everything, it looks like on the very, very surface level. I knew that I was in for a wild ride when I mentioned that many times when I walk into an operation like that, they simply hand me the quote insurance box, right?
Right.
Which is just a big box of shit. That's
Yeah.
all it is. It's a big box of everything that gets has anything to do with insurance that gets thrown in, and
Well, so that's
I
kind
have
of what
to sort
happened
it
just
out.
via email, though, it seems.
Right. And so that's the whole thing, man. Like I've had these before where people will give me 2 or 3 empty copy paper boxes just full of crap that they've dumped in for years. Oh, put that in the insurance file. Well, guess what? The insurance file is an unorganized box of bulk documents. And so then I take that stuff and, I've done this my whole career. I literally just, I lay it all out in the, we did this when we were
We
dealing
did it with
the
the
Bulgarians,
solar.
man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we had to do this then. That was also a large revenue account. I mean, it was even bigger
Yeah.
than 250. But
Yeah.
when we did it, it's like we had to put everything in order so that before we could even begin making sense out of it. You're talking about operating in a dozen states. It's 3 different companies. They were using 3 different agents. There's probably 15 different carriers on all of this stuff. So, if you're on the carrier side and you're listening to this and you're in the construction unit, you should reach out to me sooner than later. I have a really good opportunity for you because it'll be right when we're done with it.
Right.
But that's the whole thing, man. You got to put it in 3-ring binders, to make just like there's so much opportunity for E&O right here. It's insane.
Oh, God. So to your point, though, how you said that you didn't really bring up insurance at all, I mean, other than when we had to, just out of natural conversation. I mean, it's totally true, and we do talk about it on the pod all the time. And it's been so long since I've been on an appointment with you, let alone a big appointment like that. To where it was kind of interesting to watch the flow and how all of that went down. But I mean, everything started off with you just discussing our capabilities as a firm and that we are most certainly a risk management firm that happens to write your insurance, and that's how we get paid. Let's talk about all the risk management stuff that we can do for you. What do you have in terms of HR support right now? And it was absolute crickets.
It was crickets.
It was
So
crickets.
let me preface this by saying the lady asked me on Friday when everything came in, she asked me, "Will you please send me over a work list for Monday?" So I just sent her over like a dozen bullet points, and she wrote back and she said, "Okay, I don't have any of this stuff." So I had an inkling of what I was walking into, but it was just really, really bizarre. But I mean, people, here's the moral of the story. If you constantly are out there networking, prospecting, doing the things you need to do, you're going to get a bunch of no's. But when you get that yes, you're not always getting the date with the prom queen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta get her enrolled in an improvement program or something. I don't know. I don't want to. I'm using probably the wrong analogy because I don't need my female audience listening. So let's use a car instead. It's probably a better example. We bought a beater that we're getting ready to overhaul, and I'm excited to do it, man. Truthfully, Kyle's right. With COVID and everything, it's been a long time since we haven't been on anything since Slurry Boy last year, probably or 2 years ago.
I don't even. Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about him randomly the
I was
other
too
day.
because I got the notification, or I sent it to you from NCCI when the live notifications came in. It showed up. Which, by the way, if you didn't see my message, that's all cleared up now. You can go do whatever
I did
you
see
need to
that.
do.
So
They
I
already
didn't
sent
get.
us what we needed.
Okay. Yeah, we already have all that. I'm kind of coming through all that, which we need to discuss, at some point here this week as well. But I did not see if you sent me that one for freaking whatever septic. If I did not see that, did you look at it?
You an email? No, I didn't look at it. I don't care. He's dead.
No, it's not. I mean, well, maybe we have some different markets than we did back then. But anyways,
Yeah, but he's still a lying ponytailed fiend.
100%.
and
I don't even. Who knows if
trust
he's even
anything
there?
that comes out of his mouth. He's probably dead. He probably inhaled fumes. He probably inhaled fumes from the
He
lime
was just
slurry.
sucking
and they're-
down lime slurry.
Yeah, this was a septic. This was a septic company, and they had their
disgusting.
processing. Yeah, processing facility in the back lot. What's that?
They would get all the waste and they just run it through this thing, turn it into lime slurry, and sell it
It's
to
a
people
shitty
for
situation,
fertilizer.
is what that is.
Right.
It's dude. You have yes. It is so bad. And basically, we went to the comp carrier. We got all this stuff approved outside of
It was
their underwriting
good to
guidelines,
go.
ready to go. And this guy had told us like 10 different times they
No
did
confined
not
spaces.
no confined space issues at all. None. Now, we knew that based on how pump stations are set up and all of that other stuff, that there was a confined space exposure, but they swore up and down that anything that had to do with confined space was outsourced and all of this. We get to the final meeting after I've talked to the freaking president of the comp carrier, gotten him on board, the loss control guys there, or whatever it was. I don't even remember how it came
I don't remember
out.
either.
It was so pissed. I wanted to literally just take this guy and swing him around by the ponytail.
Well, what it was is we were presenting, like we finally had a viable quote and something that we could bind, and we were going over everything and going over because it was a different dividend setup and all of that, and
we had it done. We would have killed the deal.
Yeah.
I literally had to go back, eat crow to the comp carrier, and say, listen, I know I ran you through the ringer. I know you approved all of this, and the reason you did it is because you trust me and my judgment, and I've gotten information now that's leading me to believe this isn't what was originally represented. So I'm sorry, but we're not going to bind the quote. We need to pull it, and don't consider the account in the future.
David, how did that conversation go? I mean, you say you wanted to grab him by the ponytail and swing him around, but like on a learning standpoint, how did that conversation go with you and him?
I'll let Kyle recall it because I was so mad. I can't.
I know.
I was pissed, dude. You have no idea how.
Well, so was I. As soon as it was like it happened like in a second, and I like we both kind of just like looked at each other.
It happened in a second, but we've been working on it for 6 months.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it's like we had we went in there and we're like, cool, we've got a viable option. This is something they're going to do. We're giving them a dividend. It's not something they're getting now, or it's better, or whatever. And we're sitting there, and we have to get. I think we had to get like a release signed that said, something to the effect of we don't enter confined spaces, even though we had talked about it a number of times. And he's sitting there and he's like, well, there are times at the pumps or the pump stations and the lifts and everything where we've got to get in there. And me and David just kind of looked at each other like, what are you talking about? Like, you told us a bunch of times that you guys don't do that. And he's like, well, the owner doesn't want to give up the business. And I'm like, so we were obviously both furious and just left. I really, to be honest with you, Mitch, I don't remember how the exact conversation went with him, but it was something to that effect. We were just like, well, dude, why are you just telling us this right now after we've been talking to you for?
Because he knew he had to have had an issue before of that. It was somewhat what insurance agent, risk advisor, whatever, loss control rep had mentioned something about it or said we're not going to write this, and that's why he was that smart but stupid client.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing, man. Don't waste our time for 6 months. Like if you've been around us for that long, it should be painfully obvious to you that we're so thorough in what we're going to do. We're gonna find it. And it's just like this one that we started talking about earlier on. It's the same deal, man. Like, just tell me what it is. Listen, I'm not a licensed attorney by any stretch, and I will not give anybody legal advice. But when I go meet with a prospect and it's something that I think there's any chance at all that it can go left of center because of the class of business, typically contractors, I make sure I let them know up front. Look, this relationship is very similar to attorney-client privilege. I'm on your side of the table. Yeah. You need to be completely forthright with me and tell me everything because that's the only way that I'm going to be able to represent you.
But why is it that people don't understand that? Like I feel like
it's going to cost you more. Doesn't mean it's going to cost you more. Doesn't mean you're not going to get insurance. Doesn't mean any of that. But if you want me to be the absolute best version of me that I can to represent you in the marketplace, you have to give me the information that I need. And, as far as the carrier people that are listening to this and wondering, well, if this guy's getting all the information and he's not telling us everything, that's not what I'm saying. I'm getting all the information to determine whether or not I'm even going to represent these people, number one. And then number two, whether or not I'm going to take their submission to you. I'm doing you a favor. I don't think any of my carrier partners would ever come back to me and say, "Oh, David slid another one through." Never. It's 100%
No, if that was the case, we would have done it.
time.
If that was the case, we would have done it with the one that we were just talking about, because all we had to do was get signatures on there, and we were good to go.
Yeah, we were
But
literally at the point.
and you were
where
like, "Hey, look, I'm." It's exactly like you said. You're not one that's going to try to slide something under there, and credibility is.
Yeah, if I remember it right, I think I told you I'm not comfortable moving forward with this. I think I'm the one who made the decision.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think we both were like, we left there and we're like, we can't do this.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is what it is. But anyhow, that was a great 12, 14-minute intro without even letting
phenomenal story.
Mitch talk about himself.
Got on here, scripted and ripped it.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, that's what happens, man, when we're not sitting behind a podcast mic and we're actually out meeting with people. We get real stories to tell again. So it's been good, man. I mean, this is
been a busy week.
You know, it's crazy. Just in the last 2 days, I told Kyle, we have written more revenue in just this week than we've written all year because of how big because of how big that one account is. But you know, I just really feel like this is getting me amped up now to a level I haven't been in probably a decade. And I'm ready to go, dude. 2022 is going to be nasty. The Peloton tread gets delivered tomorrow. I will be just absolutely just freaking
better stay away from that, Mr. Big.
Have you seen those mirrors? Those workout mirrors?
If I think those are. If I had a place to hang one, I'd have one.
Those things are sweet.
Yeah, Kilgo has that. Jason Kilgo uses the mirror.
I don't exercise anymore, so
there's a reason why. There's a reason why he has the mirror over tonal, but I don't remember what it was. There was a reason, and it had to do with the way the classes are set up and him being able to work out with his wife or whatever. And yes, I probably made a left-handed remark about working out with my wife when he was saying it, but it had nothing to do with the mirror or it may have something to do with the mirror, but not the tonal. Anyhow, all of that to say, Mitch, give everybody your backstory who doesn't know who you are, where you're from, and then we'll get into it, even though we already got into it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate first off having having me on the show. Second of all, you guys talking about the stories and you know, things that you guys have went through or things that you've experienced. I think that's what makes your guys' show so daggone freaking good and why people love listening to it, because it gives you real life examples and things that you guys have experienced that people can learn from. So I just took a couple helpful nuggets out of your guys' 12 minutes of ADHD talk, if you want to call it. That's what I call it.
Yeah, you're going to get along with us fine, man. I know you've got it too, man. You're going to get along fine. No worries.
Either that or we'll have an hour and 45-minute episode. But to I guess make a long story short, I guess I'm probably like the 75% of others out there who had no intentions of getting into the insurance industry. My vision of it was the cliche Jake from State Farm, sit behind the desk wearing the khakis, red, polo.
Hey,
it wasn't for me.
My boy Jake's rocking Balenciagas these days, so he must be doing all right in his role.
Hanging out with Chris Paul and who else now? Mahomes. Yeah. I mean, that's just unbelievable. I actually started for me getting into an accident. I got in a car accident back in 2016 into 17, and I didn't know what the heck to do on an insurance claim. So actually the agency that I'm working at now, and I've been with going on 5 years now, I called them just to get an idea. I was on my parents' policy. They recently had just kicked me off of their policy since I was no longer in their house, because that was the type of parents I had. And I hadn't had the policy for probably 2-3 months, and I get a total loss. Slipped through an intersection, leaving a Colts game from working a broadcast, and totaled my car. Had 112 miles on it. Just got it. So I didn't know what the process looked like, how to go about it, how to submit a claim. So I called my friends over at HRM, where I'm at now, and said, "Hey, can you guys give me any idea, what I should do here? What's my first step?" And this is after they were down my throat, probably 6 months, 7 months prior to that, saying, "Hey, I think you should come work here. I think you do great." And me putting up that brick wall, saying, "No, I don't want to do it because I." Of what an insurance agent was. Well, after talking to them through the claims process and them helping me, and they weren't even my agent, so to be able to have that value from them was an eye-opening experience for me. So then the next time they asked me to sit down and go to talk about a potential job opportunity and what that would entail, I sat down with them and gave them a shot. And next thing working there. Graduated on December 12th, and I started working there December 13th. So it was a pretty quick transition, but I realized real quick as I'm sitting here in front of a microphone like you guys that my degree in telecommunications wasn't going to get me very far with the radio market. Radio's, broadcast radio slowly going away in different avenues, especially on the music industry side. And I didn't want to be stuck in somewhere that I wasn't going to put some food on the table for my family. So I gave it a chance, gave it a shot, and I've been with HRM for almost 5 years now, and I've loved every single second of it. Day. That's what makes this industry fun and why I love being a part of it.
So what was it? I know you said as you went through this claims process and just how helpful everybody was, but can you pinpoint a specific thing that happened during that time period where you're like, okay, this makes me want to check this out or investigate this a little further or join or whatever?
It was the fact that they were helping somebody that wasn't even their customer, which to me was like, he could have said, hey, well, I can give you some advice, but let me take a look at your auto insurance, next year when it comes up on renewal, or let me do this. He wasn't trying to sell, or they weren't trying to sell me anything. Yeah, they were probably using it as a lead way into helping, maybe grow a relationship with me to where they did offer the opportunity of working there.
That's what we're supposed to
do.
They
added
right?
value.
That's exactly how it should be.
Develop
done,
relationships.
Period. It's like when we were talking with Kevin Ring when we had him on the podcast the first time, and he's talking about how somebody will go in with some he equated it to somebody going in with some knee pain or whatever, and the doctor saying, oh well, let's do a full body scan and check out your back and your neck and do this and do that. And in the course of that conversation, I said, yeah, it's like an insurance agent going in and somebody's got a workers' comp problem, but in the meantime, they don't focus on what they're dealing with that's causing the workers' comp issue, which is never really the insurance piece. It's whatever they don't have in processes or procedures or what they didn't execute. But an insurance agent's going to go into that same situation and say, oh, well, we can go in and we can open you up and we can have surgery over here and we can do surgery over here. We can do some surgery on your back. We can do all of that and have you feeling like new, for about as much money as you're spending now. We jump to that, right? And I think that for the people, COVID has been good. For the people that did not act that way to begin with, it forced us to go out and figure out a different way to deliver our value proposition to people without being able to sit across the table from them. For the people who have always been order takers that deal with the calls coming in and expect the agency to generate the leads for them and all of that, it made them look way worse because it just magnified what they were already doing and making it easier for them to do what they already do. I feel like that, we have become much stronger through all of this because we do have we can go back to the old way anytime we want. I don't know that we ever will. I think that moving forward, we'll have that heavy mix of, digital Zoom meetings and having conversations that way. And of course, doing the video proposals and all of that stuff. And then, we'll go meet with the people who want to meet in person and we'll cold call for the places where we can do it. But we don't have to do that. It forced us to take the skill set we have and figure out a better way to deliver
it man.
Under extreme circumstances, right? And so that's a huge issue for a lot of agents. I mean, to your point, these guys were doing it the right way, man. They were making sure that they were listening to what was going on with you and trying to fix your problem. And they just make the assumption that if they do that, they'll get business from it. It may not even have been you. They may not even have been able to write you at a young age with a total loss on your policy at that point. But They'll know that you're going to go tell everybody else. Shoot, you're how many years later on a podcast telling that story about how the impact that they made you. In my absolute best relationships, how I know that I've got a good relationship with a client is 15 years later, that client can tell me, I remember the day you walked into my office. That's all I want. That's all I want.
Shirt off, cowboy hat on.
Yeah.
Air Force Ones. That's it.
Yeah, literally, you just freaking, you walk in, you have a completely different angle. You get them to buy into that. They understand you're serious because you deliver your message with passion and conviction. And it's over at that point. And people are gravitate toward that. It's not about having a different message. It's about confidently delivering that message. And that's where people screw up, right? What we do, look, I talk to probably
and following
24
through
people.
with it.
Yeah, I probably talk to 24 people on Zoom meetings or phone calls or whatever every week asking for advice. What do I do here? What do I do there? And at the end of the day, they know the message. They just don't have the guts to deliver it. They don't know how to. They don't know how to say no, or they don't know how to say, "Yeah, I see what you're doing there, but have you ever considered this?" And gently push somebody in a different direction to try and educate them on the right way to do things because they're so worried they're not going to get paid. That's it.
Yep.
Oh, if I say this, they may not let me quote. Who cares? If they don't want you to quote because you're doing it the right way, I don't want to quote them anyhow.
I agree. And then the thing too, David, is just, I mean, it's not like I didn't know who these guys were from Adam. I had known them from, family relatives who, baseball, basketball friends, family, whoever that we've seen in the community. Went to school.
Sponsoring little league teams and everything else for years.
Correct. So you see that, it wasn't necessarily like, the reason why the first people to call for help on that time frame was I didn't want to call my mom and dad because they're, you're 21 years old, figure it out. Like, that's how my parents are. They want us to learn. I didn't know what in the hell to do. So I went to the person that I had seen the most, their logo the most, the people that I felt comfortable, I could have a serious conversation with them and them understand how I'm truly, what I'm going through or in the world get this accident. But for me, I thought it was. I was working at the radio station making $10 an hour, working promotional events at Colts games, Pacers games, all this stuff, in the cold, at nighttime, away from my family and kids. And I'm like, this is, oh, it was awful.
Please tell me you drove a conversion van to 7-Eleven with
multiple
an external
times.
Speaker and flashing lights. That is
multiple times. Actually, we had 97.1 Hank FM, which is our country station, and we had a Hummer, and the Hummer was sweet. Oh, it was awesome, and I tried to have dibs on the Hummer.
Like an H1, H2, or H3?
It was an H2, so it was I think that's the smaller one or the middle one, isn't it? Like not as big.
So the H2 is the one that they released that you saw more of on the streets, and then the H3 was like the little smaller profile. The H1 looks like it belongs in the military. The H2 actually you could make it.
My buddy's uncle had one of the military ones. Like, it didn't have any doors on it or anything. Like, it had the rack in the back with the turret.
-6 miles. Yeah, -6 miles to the gallon.
Oh yeah, but it was so sweet. Like, we I remember in high school. Like, I mean, we weren't more than like 17 years old, and we went up in the garage and snatched the Hummer and just drove it around like our little local area right there. We felt like such ballers. It was awesome.
But yeah, it was fun. I mean, I really did enjoy working there. But I had a child my freshman year of college, so for me, I didn't have a choice but to figure out how to make some more money and working as late as you were and ticking off the now ex-wife that you weren't gonna be home until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock because you were at the radio station tearing on a set from a event that we were giving away dinners to top fans of the station. Like, that stuff I was over with. And then the accident happened, leaving the place, done.
I think everybody should wait to be 30 years old to get married. I just made that up, but I honestly believe that. I agree. Because same boat, man. I mean, I ended up getting divorced from my first wife when I was in my early 30s, and very shortly after met my wife and I don't know that there's ever been a time that we've gone to bed angry at each other. Never. Like, we just deal with things in a much different way because we're older and we're more mature. And in my early 20s, that wasn't the case. And I was the same deal, man. I got yelled at because we weren't making enough money, and then I got yelled at because I worked so much to make extra money, and I couldn't figure out what the heck I was supposed to do, to make her happy, right? Mm-hmm. I think people, if you're young in your early 20s and you're thinking about getting married, don't do it. Wait till you're
just wait
older.
Because you will change. Well, last 3 years, I've changed, like, just maturity-wise, one, but two, just I've developed into a man. I was a little boy. I mean, I still am a boy. I'm still young, but I've changed a lot since the time that I was with that person, which in return has now been a great blessing in disguise for me. I'm becoming the person that I want to be, and surrounding myself around the people that I want to surround myself with, which in return is making me a better human being. And it's also making me a better insurance producer. So that's what I think David's meaning by that, is just don't rush into stuff just because, it's there. I mean, take care of yourself and what you're doing.
You hear people all the time say in the insurance industry, wow, I wish I would have known this when I was in my early 20s. No, you'd have sucked as an agent in your early 20s. Everybody that's successful is successful because of all the things that they did wrong earlier and learned from, right? So I wouldn't say that. I mean, I was far from a failure when I was in the retail industry. I was actually really successful at it. It wasn't a good fit for what I expected for work-life balance as I was wanting to build a family. I don't look at those, 10, 12 years that I was doing that as wasted time or a failure. In fact, it's helped me be successful doing what I do now. If I wouldn't have had hiring and firing responsibility, total HR responsibility, budgeting, forecasting, being responsible for P&L performance and understanding all of that, having a team of people that had to report to me, I would not be able to go out and have the same kind of conversations that I have with middle market accounts. There's a 100% chance I would not have been able to do that.
I think you said that to me when we were at lunch after that, the same account that we were talking about earlier, is you said something to the effect of that's where my operations background comes into play. And so it's totally true. I think it's just about how you look at things. You can't, it's a mindset. I mean, if you're sitting there thinking that certain aspects are failures because you're no longer doing that, or it took a different turn and now you're in another place, it's the wrong way to look at things.
It's just part of your story. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's part of your story.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
Yeah. I said it's just part of your story. Oh, you're talking to my bad.
Yeah, how many times do you use your office supply stuff? Every day?
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, obviously that's not something that I'm still doing. That didn't work out. Things happen and they happen for a reason. And now I'm here. But yeah, I mean, lessons that I learned from that was like an Excel. That was like a master's program on sales. It was like and it was
like
Excel.
High pressure.
Yeah, for sure. Like from
kind
day
of the exact
one.
opposite of what we do. But that being said,
Totally.
Where the high pressure comes in, and look, people, if you don't think there's high pressure in middle market, don't let us fool you. There absolutely is. You still have to be able to apply the pressure to get the audience, right? Now, when you get to that point of sale, it's not that way. People are going to make their decisions in their own time. Sometimes, for example, the one we were in yesterday, you got to lead them to the close 3 or 4 times.
So that's what I was just about to say, is that was one of the main things that I learned from selling the office supplies is you overcome the objection and then you go back to the close. You have to go back to the close because that's the whole purpose of you being there is to close them. So that's exactly what happened yesterday. I mean, it was kind of like we were getting close to being there, and then we had all the buy-in and everything, and then something came up or like they got sidetracked or whatever. So it was just, and it wasn't necessarily really an objection that we were getting. It was just kind of conversation went a different direction for whatever reason. Distraction, somebody walked in the office, the dad walked in the office, what have you. Go back to the yeah, you love that. Go back to
time out.
Go back to the close.
About this guy. Yeah, this guy that owns this company is one of my favorite guys ever. Probably my favorite guy ever by a long shot, by a landslide. For sure. This guy looks like, God rest his soul, Randy Macho Man Savage, if he were actually 70 years old right now.
Yeah.
This guy's probably 33, but has lived such a rough life that he looks like he's 70. But I think he's
definitely 60s for sure.
White hair, white beard. If you put this guy in my office and said, "What do you think this guy does?" If I didn't guess that he was a plumber, I would probably guess that he was like a trash collector or something like that. Or, there's no doubt that this guy does manual labor.
Right.
First time I shook his hand, it was like shaking
construction.
Johnny
Yeah. Right.
It was
absolute
insane.
Leathery, just
And Kyle and I are in his office. He easily smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Easily. He may open the wrapper and put some cigarette tobacco in, but like a little pinch between the cheek and gum, like it's dip. And chase it with a cowboy killer just to make sure he's getting enough nicotine into his system. And while he's drinking Bud Heavies, and he comes in and he's got this leathery.
He's a good dude though.
Really good guy, man. I told Kyle, I want to hang out with this guy. I want to take him to a Bucks game or something just to be like, this is my people. But he's like, "Hey, you guys want something to drink?" And so I'm thinking, hey, I thought he was going to come out with some tall boys. He pulls out a 4-pack of lemon-flavored Perrier. You can't make this up, man.
Yeah,
You're
it's
not supposed to
awesome.
be drinking that. You're supposed to make fun of guys like me for drinking that.
That's
Totally.
awesome.
But anyhow, he comes in. Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, people, I'm going to give you a little trick because you know why? I know that when I give little tricks out, 80% of you aren't going to do it. I don't mind sharing my stuff. Had to pull out a little razzle-dazzle on that appointment yesterday because Auto Owners has a very significant discount if you pay in full on the account, and this was a 6-figure premium account, so if they pay in full, it was a
Pay
substantial
attention here,
discount.
people. This is going to go right over your head if you don't listen.
Yeah, so we're in the meeting, and the mother, it's a family company, the lady's like, I just think we need to go ahead and pay the whole thing so that we can get the expense taken care of and save the money and blah, 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 blah. And the owner, the dad comes in like, oh, not so fast. Like he's not ready for them to do it. And he's like, I don't want to write a check for that much, blah, blah, blah. I want to save the money, but I don't, and all that. So I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. If you have a line of credit at the Suncoast, at the credit union or your community bank, you're probably getting 3 or 4 points of interest on that. You're going to save over 10% for the paid in full option. So why don't you just write a check against your line of credit? You're still going to net out a 7 or 8% savings on the premium, but you're not going to have to write the check for the full amount over, out of your bank account. Right now, you're paying to finance this, whether you realize it or not.
Right.
And it's boom. And
Yeah.
we walk out. Kyle's like, I don't even know if that's real or not.
Yeah. What just happened?
But I mean, that's the kind of stuff, though, man. When you're not out calling on people, and and it's my fault if I'm not going on appointments with these guys at the level I should, so they can see things happen in real time. Because I have so many tricks and tips at this point in my arsenal, I can't remember everything off the top of my head. I can't.
No, it just happens as it comes up as it happens, and it's not going to.
I can't just sit down and say, "Oh, well, let me list out every
try
trick
this
that I've
yeah.
ever had."
Right.
You have to know what the cues are at the point of sale, and the only way you can do that is get the at bats. And when you get the at bats, make sure you have people there to listen to them. That was the cool part about having the stuff on Zoom because I could record it. Then I could go back and show people stuff or whatever else. But, these meetings that are in person, it's a whole different animal. And see, that's the whole thing. You have to understand, too, auto owners won't let you premium finance, right, if you're going to pay in full. So it has to be something like a line of credit with a community bank at a low interest rate in order for you to pull that off. But they won't give you the paid in full discount on a premium finance deal.
That's crazy, but I'm gonna kind of go backwards for a second. What I loved about that story is just the thought of, okay, I got to find a resolution for this, and you added value again. So just like how the owners of the agency that I'm at added value to me by just providing an opinion or what the step-by-step process needs to be to file a claim and get back in in a vehicle so I can go to work tomorrow. You've done that on a different route, a different way, but it goes back to adding to.
Yeah, and I think it goes one step further. This guy walked into the office, and we were already well
Done.
underway in the meeting, and
We were
hit
done.
him in between. They hit him between the eyes.
So
oh yeah, well we're just gonna have to write this check for this amount. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
blah.
and again, so it's a husband and wife
$100,000.
a husband and wife and a daughter, and they've been in business for years, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever. And we were done with the meeting. We were getting ready to leave, and they had verbally agreed that we were going to move forward, and more than once. And then he walked in, and they were like, "Hey," and it's funny because they're just kind of, they're all over the place. That's just how they do things. But he walks in, he's not even in there, can't even take a breath yet, and they're like, all right, so they're going up. We got the renewal coming up on the 20th, and so we need to go ahead and do this. And if we it's 128, and if we do it pay in full, it's 150. Whatever the numbers were, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh fuck, this is not how I wanted the end of this to go. This is not
but I think
smooth.
that what happened is this is what I think to take it a step further though. I think that by having that conversation, it diffused him a little bit. To realize, because I feel like if I would have walked into that room, if I was that guy and somebody hit me with that, it's like, I know I've seen these guys before, but hold on, what kind of game are you pulling? Yeah, what are you trying to do here? Come in for a quick hit, get a big check, and be out of here. I think that by taking the time to say, look, man, you need to get this deal done, but at the end of the day, here's another way you can do it so that you can get what you want and she can get what she wants, and we, and show that, look, there's multiple ways to do it, and we have the experience to do it that way. Now, let me tell you, you want to talk about a train wreck? Whoo! This thing, How many power units? How many vehicles are on that policy?
Who knows?
45 or 50?
We're not sure. No, it's
somewhere in there though.
I think it's 37.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and still stick with there should be 45 or 50 on the policy. I think there probably are. But the deal is that, so I get it that in other parts of the country that like State Farm is actually a player on commercial auto. That's not the case here. These people, at least half the policies were 6-month policies. The other half were annual policies.
Right.
Everything is on its own policy. There is no master. You get an individual policy for each vehicle. So when this lady pulled out the insurance box, oh my goodness. Like, we're sitting here, it took literally a couple of months for us just to try and wrap our arms around everything they had. And then I told Kyle, I'm like, literally, we're going to have to get out there at like 5 o'clock in the morning or something when we know all the vehicles are in the yard, and we're going to have to go vehicle by vehicle to inspect VINs.
Yeah, the main issue with this account is the fact that they don't really know. I mean, State Farm's writing it on Symbol 7, and they've had issues where they've bought vehicles, sent it over to State Farm, and they haven't got them on the policy. So their main issue is walking around, and going to sleep at night with that concern that they may not be covered. So when we went in and presented, I mentioned a few minutes ago, going back to the close is like the number one thing that I learned, when I was selling office supplies. When we were having this discussion and they were kind of chiming in and going back and forth and getting sidetracked, I said, listen, our main goal when we set out to help you with this was to get this policy written the correct way so that you don't have any heartburn and you're not losing any sleep at night, and know that you're covered, even if something does happen where it doesn't get reported, right away. And so you guys are trying to sift through and see what you're paying now, and really it doesn't matter. And so that was essentially the close. And that kind of led them, like David said, to the conclusion and realization on their own that we need to go ahead and wrap this up and do business.
They had no spreadsheets of fleet schedule or nothing.
No, they do now.
Well, they do now because I was
going to be like, wow, that's.
I needed it from them, obviously, so I had to have them sort of create it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the other thing too, just as a learning experience from that meeting, is once we presented the fact that there was a substantial discount, they began to get hung up on that. And I recognized that in the course of conversation, which is why I came back with the whole use your credit line deal to write it.
Right.
But even at the end, I could see that they were having a hard time getting past. We got to make them. And by the way, just call it what it is.
Okay, so that's a good point.
It's 6 days before renewal. Like,
right.
The bulk of these are going to renew on 12/20. This is 6 days before 12/20.
Yeah.
And I told him, I'm like, look, I get what you're saying. But
you're right. They were hung up on the fact that they may have to write a check for $115,000 like this week. And
so I told him, I'm like, just breathe easy. You have time to make the financial decision. If you're telling me that you want us to place. Look, this is probably not best practices advice, people. This is where the sausage gets made, and you're going to figure out that, we do the same things on the streets that a lot of people do, right? And so I told him, if we have to go ahead on the coverage, I'm good with that. We represent you on all lines. You're a known client to us. I'm not concerned that you're going to bail. We'll go ahead. We'll bind coverage, and if you have to come back to us after the fact and say, we decided we're not going to pay in full, okay. You can take until the week after Christmas to think that out. If I've got to make a call to auto owners or whatever, I'm going to do that for you. Or if you decide to put it on installments and then you change your mind, I'll go back to them and I'll ask for that as well. But, they were getting hung up on the financial end of it, and that never should be the issue, right?
No.
The fact they have the ability to write that check is good enough for me, right? Like, this was an actual conversation as to whether or not they should write it. And the reason why I knew that trick to tell them is because I've used it like 3 or 4 other times with plumbing companies who
you're talking about the line of credit or the
credit deal.
Yeah.
Has it worked? Has anyone actually done it?
Yeah, almost every time. And there he goes.
You called it too. Why does that happen?
Riverside for the win. If Jason Cass, in the odd event that you're actually listening to my podcast, Kyle's gone. Your boys at Riverside did it to us again. End of story. But yeah, no, I mean, it's something that I've used over and over, a few times, and it always works. There's always those little tricks, man, and you'd only get them through experience, and that's the thing. That's why I am valuable to Kyle. I mean, he could probably outsell me any day of the week. I just have the street smarts. I know the things that you got to do to get the deal done. And you don't learn that. You're not going to learn that in a year or 2 years or 5 years. I think people come in with unrealistic expectations for themselves. Like you can just take a USB dongle and plug it into your ear hole and download everything you need to know. That doesn't exist. And so you have to go to continuing education. You have to take it seriously, right? There's guys my age that have been doing this a long time that are going to lose business this year because they haven't taken continuing education seriously for a decade. And there's somebody young and somebody hungry that does understand the policy forms, that has gone and gotten their CIC, CPCU, CRM, whatever, and they're going to go in and they're going to take business from them, because I think that we get our licenses, we're aggressive for the first few years, and then as agency principals or whatever else, we gain a sense of entitlement that we don't have to keep up with this stuff anymore. You know what, man? When the National Alliance announced that they were having the subscription for their website to where you could get your CIC, and it was $700 a year for the subscription to take as many of their classes they wanted, I went in and signed up for myself in addition to my team, because I do take my continuing ed seriously. And even though I'm not necessarily getting credit for everything in my state level because of the way the mega courses are set up with them, I still listen to them. I'll put it on. I'll be in the CIC watching it on my monitor and listening to it in real time, but I can still sort of multitask as much as I possibly can. But there are things that I've used that I've just learned in the last 2 or 3 months from going through those modules that I've already put into practice that I honestly wouldn't have gotten deals done if I hadn't have taken that seriously. So that's the, if I'm giving you advice as a younger agent, that's the one thing that I would tell you is, yeah, you have to be a little bit nerdy. You have to understand what you're selling to a certain degree. No matter what I say about how you position and posture that you're going to solve a problem instead of selling a product, at the end of the day, we get paid, unless we're taking service fee, we get paid off the sale of that product. And in order to sell it and keep yourself out of trouble, you have to know what it is you're selling. You have to have a basic understanding of that. And again, you're not going to get every ounce of that from CIC. You'll get a good fundamental understanding that will put you ahead of other people that got their license at the same time that you did. And you can then go back to the guys that have had that agency forever and rely on them to augment what you've learned in the books and through those courses, and show you, okay, and then here's how it happens in the real world, right? I think CIC is way more real worldly than what going and getting a license is. But it's still not 100% real world, because you have to base it off of ISO forms, and not everybody uses ISO forms anymore. So you still have a little bit of a gap, but that would be the biggest thing, man, is take that seriously every single year and just make yourself stronger mentally and intellectually. And it's going to take you a lot of places, because what that does is it gives you a sense of confidence that you know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you don't, a lot of people just go in bulletproof, man. They don't know what they don't know, right? That's the old Enrod comment. That's your favorite comment.
That actually, I think that came from Doug Walters, though. He used to say that all the time.
Yeah. So I mean, but that's the thing, man.
And I don't even know what that means. What does that even mean?
It means you go in bulletproof, and it's going to be an absolute train wreck if you actually have to have an insurance discussion, is what it means.
Yeah.
And so I think that you come out that way, but then at some point you begin doubting yourself. Maybe somebody asks you that first question or two you can't answer, and you're embarrassed in a meeting. It's happened to everybody. And we don't immediately gracefully push past that because we haven't had the experience to do that yet. Then we start second guessing our own ability, and it screws up our prospecting and everything else because it's in our head at that point.
I don't think young agents getting into it are patient enough with everything. Like here I am going on 5 years. I confident enough after middle market as maybe and I feel confident enough to be able to answer those questions that they've never been told by their previous agent because they've never had an answer, or they said, I'm going to give you, when I get back to the office, I'll find out. I went and saw somebody about 6 months ago, and I didn't get the manufacturer. I was like, super, super excited. I didn't land it, but I will tell you, frustrated me the most about the agent who took it or who won, between me and her. He asked her a specific work comp question, specifically a mod question, and it was about the listen to your what's the mod advisor guy?
Return to work, light duty.
Thams?
Yeah, Todd Thams. Yeah, Todd
I
Thams.
didn't understand that. If I would have won that account, because I lost that account by $14,000 in premium because Travelers and this lady has an issue, made a change to the issue, brought the issue up to me. I didn't know how to answer it. That right there is in my eyes, what lost me the account, because I wasn't educated enough on that specific, question on the work comp mod, because he had no return to work program, none.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't I see that? I think it's just because maybe someone has told me. It didn't stick. It didn't stay because it didn't make sense, because I didn't understand what a mod was back 3-4 years ago. I knew enough to be dangerous now, but I still don't feel like I am, David Carothers of work comp. Hopefully one day will be.
No one is.
You need to aim a lot higher than that, man. But
if that made any sense.
I agree, man. That's the whole thing, and that's where people screw up, is they don't take the time to learn that stuff. Why? Because that's not insurance, right? That's not
right.
Even though it applies to it, you having a very thorough understanding of the workers' compensation experience mod, that's not part of a submission. That's not a question on the accord form. As the submitting agent, do you thoroughly understand the ramifications? No. And so you have to take that upon yourself to go learn that stuff. And the people who know it are going to crush the people who don't every time on the street. And the reason why is because it's very much a financial discussion.
Right.
It's 100%. Here's money leaking from your bottom line. Here's why. Here's how you fix it. This is here's the program that we use and we've been successful with. That's the difference. Otherwise, I can get a quote for you. I can get a quote from a carrier that'll write this, and then you're hoping that the pricing's going to be right. You can't even make a good case to the underwriter because you don't know anything at all about what's in the different layers of the account at that point.
Well, the funny thing was, David, I reached out about a month ago and said, hey, just checking in. I hope you guys are doing well. I know your renewal is coming up in March. I know we discussed taking another chance, taking another look. I want to check and see how the return to work program has in play. No return to work program still.
Done deal. Because you're on the podcast today, I'm immediately going to send you the link to my Dropbox that has 100% of the resources you need for return to work.
That's what I need.
We'll
win it.
Yeah. 100%. You can go in with it. That. You just need to change the branding on it. But you can go in and say, look, I understand that I was less than impressive last year. I've taken the last year to learn what I needed to do. I've become a student of this. We've put this program together. I can put it in immediately upon binding coverage for you, and we can monitor it in real time. End of story.
Yep.
There you go.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think it was more my aspect of I was the owner of this manufacturer going up travel based very well. So I took that assumption of just the having that friendship with I'm going to run through this account. I'm going to get this no questions asked. I've got the carrier that's going to write this, going to be all over it. Yada yada yada. This and the other, and I was wrong because I had the wrong assumption going in. Rather than trying to find a problem to solve, I went in just trying to sell insurance and didn't get me very far. So I'll never make that mistake again because of that. Because of learning from that.
Yep. No, and I mean, it's a big deal, man. That to us is low-hanging fruit specifically here. But I mean, the other thing you can be doing, I mean, not to give away the farm on how to prospect for workers' comp, but again, it goes back to what I said before. I can give it all away for free, and 85% of the people are never going to do anything with it because they're too lazy. But where you're at, I don't think Indiana has filed rates, right? You don't have administered pricing like we do, so they can go up or down. If I'm in your shoes, I'd also be paying very close attention to the loss cost multipliers on all of the carriers that are out there, because what you find is that a lot of these people end up going to a payroll company for their workers' comp, and then it's never revisited again. and you find somebody that's with a carrier like the Hartford, who's got God knows how many underwriting companies in every state, and that comp is sitting in the one that's got the highest loss cost multiplier, which automatically means it's going to have much higher premium. And you know based on the size and shape of that account that you can pick up the phone, talk to them, and that's an immediate wedge because you already have the solution. And look, people, I understand that that's selling on price, but it's delivering value at the same time because somebody didn't understand how loss cost multipliers work, and they left them in the same carrier forever. So you can pick up the phone. You could literally dial for dollar selling comp over the phone just based off of that strategy.
I like that. I like that idea. I've never even thought about that.
Yeah, so I mean that's a big deal. And look, I can't give you any more advice because now you decided
you're
you are
good.
throwing your hat in the ring in the protege, and everybody's going to bitch that I gave you a leg up, even though that has nothing to do with any of the challenges that are swimming around in my head right now.
Kirby's already been bitching. He's like, you didn't have to do a video. I said, I've made 370 videos this year. I think we'll be all right. But I'll do a video if we need to, just to satisfy Mr. Kirby's needs.
Yeah, you're going to do one only because I need to have it build out your profile on the webpage and everything. But you know, I'm glad you're in, man. I really am. I was sitting back. I mean, it is so funny how that whole thing unfolded because I kept waiting, and I knew you were helping Kirby with his stuff, and I'm thinking this is getting a little weird. I wonder if Mitch isn't going to put his name in the ring because you were one of the people that I really was hoping would do it because I know you have a lot of potential and a bright future ahead of you, and I wanted to be able to help you in that format. And so when you didn't, I was like, And literally, it's funny because I reached out to you the night before you said you were going to do it, and it was specifically for that reason. And when you gave me the reason why you didn't put it in, I let it go.
Yep.
But that's the only reason I reached out for you is because I wanted you to be the wild card that came in. And when you told me that you had some things you were working through on the personal side and you needed to devote time to your family and everything else, I was out, right? And so I wasn't going to push you because I believed that that's where you needed to be. Whether not even knowing what your circumstances are, that's where I would go. I mean, and so when Heath reached out to me and said, you should talk to Mitch, I'm talking to him right now. I'm like, well, I just talked to that joker last night. And he's like, no, he's down. And I'm like, oh, it's on now. And it's funny because so I was literally sitting in a restaurant. I had just sat down. Heath is super excited. He's calling me. Somebody else was calling me. I'm like, listen, guys, I just sat down to eat with my family. We can deal with this later. But Kirby messages me. And he's like, I got this thing on lock or whatever else. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I was like, I don't know that you actually know what's going on. Because this was after the draft. This was the night.
The night of the
draft. Yeah, this was the night after we had the draft. And I told him, I was like, I've got a player to be named later, but we're still working on, the contract requirements or whatever else. And I didn't have who I thought. I had a couple ideas, but then he said, no, I was talking to little brother, blah, 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 blah. So, Kirby said, I'm not worried about anybody else. And I have the screenshot, and I said, tell that to your boy Gibson. And he's like, oh, F. He's like, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's on now, isn't it? And he's like, you're kidding me, right? And then I took a screenshot of the thing, and then he immediately started lighting you up. But, I mean, I think it's going to be a good experience for you, man. I think you're at the right place, and as long as it doesn't conflict with anything that you have to deal with your kids and all of that, it'll be a good time. It's fun. You'll learn in a fun environment, and you're going to get skills that you're going to be able to use the rest of your career, whether you win or not.
That's kind of how I took it too. So I had that, still when I messaged you, that was kind of I'm trying to do a better job of just in my personal life and business life. It's okay to sometimes say no. You're working on, this, that, and the other. I finally just got like my life back down the path that I wanted to go after everything that I've been through. And having two little kids is on top of that's even harder being a single parent. But as I sat there and I slept and, next day happened and I saw the draft, I watched the whole daggone thing, even though it wasn't live, rooting for my buddy Sean. I knew he was going to get picked in the top couple 2 or 3. And it kind of pissed me off. I'm going to be a little bit completely honest with you. It kind of ticked me off a little bit because I'm like, I should be part of this. Like I truly feel like I should. And then 2, I've got to write the insurance anyways. might as well take it as a learning opportunity to go through these processes and strategies and learn from the best people, the best in the industry doing it at real time.
Here's the part of that. I think a lot of people get confused. Like, this is not like fake,
Sure.
When we say reality, it is reality. Like, so when you go out and you're building processes, it's not like you're just building fictitious case studies to for no reason, just to entertain people on the internet. These are real business plans and real strategies that you're going to use to go close real accounts. Ask Mr. Derek Hayden how real the $70,000 in revenue is he brought in. I'm pretty sure his wallet thanks him every day.
He just had a really good fourth quarter too.
Yeah, I haven't.
He's killing it. He's killing it.
I haven't seen it. Good. He needs to.
But that's it's a chance to learn. One, I'm going to continue to learn, like you said, continuing education. This is going to be a great piece of continuing education, even though I'm not getting any CE for it. But the benefit of it is what we're all here to do. We're here to kill commercial and close more business and help more people and create and solve more problems for people that they're dealing with and be helpful. I do that every day. Let's do it at a higher level with some really high end people, and let's make it happen. So that's when you announced Heath, I'm like, damn, I really messed up. And then you reached out. I'm like, all right, I contemplated this all night. I'm in. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. So I appreciate it.
So the thing with that is, I always had a plan for Heath. I wasn't sure if I was going to bring him in as a coach this season or if I was just going to wait until next season. And then when I saw how many people I was able to pare the videos down to and how many were left, I'm like, all right, this is going to be a really cool twist right out of the box. Let's have them draft down. Let's make the people assume that they're not. Let me go grab Annabelle, because Annabelle, look, I have been very vocal about the fact that I felt like she had the ability to win the first season. And
I agree.
She didn't get past herself. And so I went back and I told her, I'm like, look, you got to get through this. Like, you could win the entire thing. I want you to come back. You're going to have to get over the whole video thing, because it is kind of important for a show to be on TV or video or whatever. But, you can do this. You need to believe you can do it, and it's going to change your career. And when she was in, I'm like, okay, now I need to go. Who of all the people that I thought would apply for this? And I had a short list of people, but you were number one, and I just ran out of time. Right?
Yeah.
I reached out to you. I didn't reach out to anybody else because it was way past my bedtime when I reached out to you to begin with. And then I ended up getting too busy the next day, and everything ended up working out. So you're going to have a good time. Everybody's going to have a good time. You also just brought the smack talk ability up a lot higher than what it was. Your boy
Love
Kirby
it.
has a bit of a smart mouth, which is fine.
He likes to think.
Yeah, I look forward to beating him down a little bit just to make him remember where he came from. But
Wait, where is he from?
He's from Indiana.
I know where he's.
Yeah, well, I know
small
you are
town
too,
he's from.
but I mean, I don't remember exactly where he is from.
It's Pendleton, Indiana. It's a smaller town, but we won't talk about that.
Yep, no worries. So, but anyhow, I think it's going to be great for everybody. So, for those of you who have not gone to Killing Commercial Insurance YouTube channel and subscribed, you should, because we are going to ramp up the challenges very shortly after the first of the year. We're giving everybody a break during the holidays this year, and truthfully, I'm still trying to figure out what they're going to be. I don't know yet. I don't know.
I love it.
It's subject to change. I'll figure it out. I got a book to write first, man. I'm only like a quarter of the way into writing my book, and it releases next month. So I'm going to have to bang that out over the Christmas holidays and get it off to Amazon to get it printed.
Yeah, the question I had on that book thing, how hard and difficult has that been?
It's not.
It's not?
No, it's not. I mean, for me, there's some things that I'm doing differently this time. I still haven't gone the full route of dictating just because I think that it's too hard. The way that I think when I'm talking, I would have to it's just easier to type it as I'm thinking it and then edit and move around in real time. Whereas if I were to just get in and start talking into my phone and recording it and then having it transcribed, it would just be a ton. But like, I had Brian Will, who wrote The Dropout Multimillionaire, on the podcast.
Hang on a second. I'm picturing you just walking around the office with one of those little recorders saying, idea for book. David walks into an appointment and just some bullshit.
Yeah. Chapter 1.
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's what he did. Like, he was telling me he was in Key West. He was finally ready to write the book, got up one day, went to the beach, laid there with his iPad, just started talking into it. 12 hours later, he was done for the day. Next day, went back, did the same thing. And he said it took him like 25 to 30 hours of dictating, and then he had to go back and type everything over again. But, I think that the biggest thing for me with putting the whole thing together is just getting the thoughts organized. Because, I think a lot of people think that I'm kidding when I say I have ADHD. I am not kidding.
Oh,
at
no.
all. It is. Yeah, no, I'm not. I mean, I'm all over the place all the time. And so, and I'm supposed to take meds for it, but honestly, I don't. I feel like I lose my edge when I take the meds. I'm not as effective. And so I just don't take them. But that's the biggest issue, is taking that jumbled mess and turning it into something coherent. And with the way that the new book is structured, I have the structure already mapped out prior to writing it. And so I'm writing it in pockets and doing, making sure everything's 100% edited and all that right up front. And so it's not going to be like the last one was. So it'll be pretty easy to get it done. Like I said, I've got about a quarter of it done. Josh Gurley wrote the foreword for this one. That's already done and ready to go. So, I think it'll be out in time without any problem. It'll probably be out before this podcast, actually. So
Pre-sale options out there already?
No, I'll do it when I get it comfortable enough that it's going to be ready, that I'm not going to have to answer a bunch of emails asking where their book was. So I'll wait. I'll wait until I know for a fact it's going to be ready to go. Because the thing that you run into is even when I announce that it's available, until they get caught up on production of it, it could be 2 or 3 weeks before it comes in. Like, I just released the extra 2 minutes in hardcover this last week, and I went in to buy some author copies of it that I could send out to people randomly that I talk with throughout the course of the week, and it's going to be 3 weeks before I get them.
My goodness.
Because it's brand new. They haven't run any yet. I don't know how they work all of that, but that's a conversation for a different day. What'd we miss, man? Before we wrap up, what did you want to get out that we didn't talk about?
I mean, other than the power of other than the protege thing, I guess my only thing else that I can say to anybody out there is, one, first off, make sure at the time of voting comes in, Team Eminem's gonna walk through this protege with the trophy, with the belt, walk out of Brainshare if that's where it's at, or wherever it is, walk out pimping, because we're gonna be on top. Second of all, young agents, if you do get tired of listening to David ever, which I'm sure you won't, because I listen to David. I don't even listen to my own show. Never even listened to myself after a recording. Head on over and listen to my podcast, MVP Podcast. It's a little bit more, I wouldn't say dummy or down, but more for the agent that's kind of just getting started, kind of in his early stages of establishing processes and systems and what works, what doesn't work, content ideas, etc. That's on Jason Cass's Agency Intelligence Network on Mondays, every other Monday. You can find me there. Other than that, David, I appreciate the time, and I guess I really don't have a ton of value to bring other than having a great conversation. Appreciate you guys having me.
Conversation, man. I think we got a lot of good stuff out, and we wouldn't have
sure.
if it was somebody else. So that's all good with me. Other than that, people, we are on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to podcasts. You should be able to find us.
Facebook.
All I'm going to ask you, look, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay. We're giving you the goods. As Scott Howell says, there's a lot of people out there that'll only give you 12 of the 15 ingredients to Aunt B's chili. We give you all 15 here. Tell us that you appreciate that. Will you please give us a like, give us a review? And you know what? If you're a hater and you don't like us, do that too. That's fine. I got something for you on the back end. Don't worry about it. Anyhow, we're out. I don't have anything else to say. This is probably one of the last ones we're recording before Christmas. Thank God we got our bank built back up again. I
know. Seriously.
We got our Christmas party tonight, so.
Ah, yes. See, it's 7:30.
Glad I could remind you about that.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
I need to go take a shower.
Please oil
and maybe get rid of that Ohio State flag behind you.
That's right. I'm gonna oil the shit out of my beard.
Yeah, please do, you freaking vagrant. All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll catch you later.
Peace, guys.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Power Producers Podcast. You can follow Killing Commercial Insurance on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our book, The Extra 2 Minutes, and our website, killingcommercial.com.